welcome to KristenKellyTV. Today I'm going to be doing a story time for you about how I dated a Scientologist. If this is something you'd like to watch, please continue. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave me any comments, and let's get into it. Okay, so this story is taking place about over 10 years ago. All right, so MySpace, for anyone who does not know, is very similar to Facebook. However, with MySpace, it wasn't like, I feel like with Facebook, you really only add people that you actually know, or at least I do, on my like personal Facebook. But with MySpace, you really added like everyone. Like if somebody was, I don't even know if you had to accept them or they just added you and they were following you. I think it was like that. I don't really remember. But everybody had a top 8. So you could move around who you wanted in your top 8. So somebody would go to your page and they'd see your top 8. So I used to go out a lot. When I was 21, living in Hollywood, going to college in LA, I would go out every single night. Like, I was constantly out. I knew everybody. I knew all the promoters. Like, I would go places. Like, everybody knew me. I never waited in line anywhere. Like, it was myself, my friend Daniela, like a bunch of really pretty, like, blonde girls. We would all travel together, and we really, like, we never paid a cover. We never waited in lines. We were, like, we'd go anywhere, and everybody always knew us. So this one promoter had me on his top 8, and I had him on my top 8. And I got a message one day from this guy. Let's call him Brian, but Brian is not his real name. His real name is actually super douchey, and if I said his real name, you guys would be like, yeah. But let's just call him Brian, because I don't know if there is a real name that is douchey as his name actually is. So he messaged me and he was like, hey, I saw that you're friends with so-and-so. I'm like really good friends with so-and-so as well. Like, we should hang out sometime. So I was like, oh, you're friends with my friend who's like this club promoter. So I was like, oh, super. So I hung out with him. I like went out with my friends and I met up with him like at a bar. He was really handsome. He was tall, really nice. Seemed like he had a lot going on for him. But he always seemed like a little off. So I met him that one time, and then we decided we were going to hang out again. So we hung out a few times. And over the few times of hanging out, here are some of the weird things that happened. So I did not know he was a Scientologist until the end. That was like one of the things I found out at the very end, that he was a Scientologist. But here are some weird things that happened throughout me knowing him. We went out to eat, and he had made a comment about what I was eating, like something like, oh, that's a lot of fat in that food, or you're eating like a lot of fatty foods. And I was like, oh, well, but I'm not fat and I want to eat this. Like, it was weird that he had made a comment about what I was eating. So that was like the first weird thing. Second, he was like, oh, we should get fit together. We should take like before and after pictures. And at the time, I was probably like 120 pounds, and I'm 5'4", and I'm probably like right now, I'm probably like 135, I think. I'm not really sure, but I'm probably between 135 and 140 right now, because I haven't really been working out and whatever. I'm fine with that. But even at 135 to 140, 5'4", I feel great. I, don't consider myself heavy at all or out of shape. At the time, I was probably about 120. And when he said that to me, I was kind of like, oh. It was kind of a weird comment to say to somebody who is, doesn't really need to get fit. Like, oh, we should take before and after photos and get fit together. Cause I was like, oh yeah, okay, maybe okay. Like, I guess, yeah, sure. And then we were hanging out at my house, and Kobe Colette, she's a singer. I don't even know if she has had anything out in like the last decade, but at the time she had a few really good songs out, and one I think was called Bubbles or something like that, I don't remember. And that song was playing on the radio, and he was like, oh, because I was like, oh, I love this song. So I put it up, and he was like, oh, she's in love with me. And I'm like, who's in love with you? And he's like, oh, Kobe Colette, like the girl who's singing the song. And I was like, oh, you know her? And he's like, yeah, she lives in my town and she's been in love with me forever, but she's fat. And it was just so weird when he said that, because she's an amazing singer. I'd seen pictures of her, and I mean, I knew what she looked like. She wasn't like, you know, like she wasn't a fat girl, but even if she was a fat girl, is that a reason not to like her because of her weight? So it was kind of like, when he said that, I was like a little taken back. I was like, oh, it's weird. And it's also weird that he would mention it to me, you know what I mean? Like, that he would even mention the fact that he knew her, but the way that he knew her is that she's in love with him. It was just kind of like a weird thing. So then another time, he went through my medicine cabinet and starts telling me about how I shouldn't take this, and I shouldn't take that, and I shouldn't take this, because this is bad for you, and that's bad for you. So not only did he invade my privacy by going through my medicine cabinet, but then he proceeded to tell me why I shouldn't take these things that were prescribed by doctors. Which was like really crazy. And even at the time, I was kind of like listening to him, but in the back of my mind, I was like, what the? Did he really go through my medicine cabinet and then like is now telling me like he's a doctor? So that's weird. Another thing was that he would talk about his sister like in such a weird way. Like he was like, oh, you look so much like my sister, except my sister is like, she has like a six-pack and like all this stuff, like almost like he wanted me to be his sister, which is like super creepy in itself. But I never actually met his sister, so I have no idea what she looked like. I did meet some of his friends, and those friends that I met were really weird. Like, one of them had stolen a dog. Like, he found a dog, and then he was gonna put up posters for it, but, like, decided he didn't want to find the dog's owner, so he just kept the dog. And then he actually saw a poster for the dog, but then decided just to keep the dog, so he, like, stole a dog. And then his other friends, they all seemed weird. You know, they all kind of seemed like people that I wouldn't be friends with myself. So there was one night, there was something called Hollywood Prom. So it was at a club, and it was supposed to be like prom. So everybody wore prom dresses and tuxes and stuff. And he and I went, and a bunch of his friends came, and my wallet actually got stolen the night before. So I couldn't pay for the limo, so he paid for the limo, and then everybody was supposed to pay him, which is what I was going to do. I was going to pay for the limo, and then everyone was going to pay me. But instead, he paid for the limo, and then everyone was going to pay him. Well, none of his friends paid him. So then he started harassing me that he wanted me to pay him for the limo. And I was like, well, it was all of your friends and me. I was going to pay for it and they were going to pay me, but clearly they didn't pay you for the limo, so why would they pay me for the limo? So no, I'm not going to pay for your friends for this limo. At the prom, he got really, really drunk and was like very like verbally abusive towards me. Then in the way back to my house, like he got so drunk that we had to leave. So he really ruined this prom that I had gotten my hair done for, my makeup done for. I'd gotten a prom dress. Like this was like a big deal. So on the way, oh, and then at that prom, I actually saw my friend who he had said that he knew him, the club promoter, and literally my friend did not know who he was. He was like, oh, hey, like had never met him before. And the reason that I had first talked to him is that he said to me, oh, we have this friend in common. And it turns out that he didn't even know my friend. So it was like really weird. So we're in the limo, we get back to my house, and he starts telling me about how I'm fat, and about how I need to lose weight, and about how, I forget what, like just all of these things about me, but literally like kept saying I was fat, like was screaming at me that I was fat, and that I was a fat pig. And I was like on the phone with my mom at one point, and he like wouldn't leave my house too. And hindsight, I should have just called the police, but I was like, he was really drunk, like super drunk, so he was like, I can't drive home, he couldn't leave. So he like slept on the couch, and I literally just like hysterically cried in the bathroom for like 6 hours on the phone with my mom. And then he the next day starts like in the morning, like when he's like walking, I'm like walking him downstairs and I had to press the remote so he could leave, the gate. He's like telling me about how he's a Scientologist, so he's better than me and he knows more than me, and that I shouldn't be mad at him because he's just telling me the truth about how I'm fat and about how I shouldn't be taking medication and like all of this crazy stuff. Absolute like bonkers. So I ended up blocking him on MySpace, and he wrote emails to literally like every single one of my friends, like my real friends in real life that he could find on MySpace, telling them about how I swindled him out of money because the money that he paid for the limo, and about how I have an eating disorder because I'm fat. Literally, like, insane. And about how I'm a drug addict because I take prescription pills that my doctor prescribes me. Like, crazy, crazy stuff. And, like, we're talking prescription pills like sleeping pills and, like, an anxiety medication that I take, like, once in a while. Like, we're not even talking about, like, anything crazy here. This guy was crazy. So that was like the first time I had ever experienced somebody online kind of like catfishing me in a way, of the fact that he said he knew my friend but he really didn't know my friend, and then the fact that he started like harassing my friends to be like, you know, like, oh, she did this and she did that, like trying to make me pay for this limo that his friends were supposed to pay me for, but they didn't pay him for because they weren't really good friends. It was just crazy. And then when I got a Facebook, he friend requested me on Facebook, but I like denied that. But yeah, just super crazy. It's like weird. Like, honestly, he was just like such a haunting person because he was so good looking, but he was so evil inside. And I look back on it and I'm like, wow, I really dodged a bullet, because I could see somebody who did not see those red flags but just like looked at him as being like a good looking guy and stayed with him. I mean, he was crazy. Like, I could see him being somebody who would kill his like wife or girlfriend or something. So yeah, that is my story about the Scientologist. I hope you guys liked this story time. If you did, please leave me any comments, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.